Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Beavers, the Executive Director of the Amazonic Conservation Association, based here in Washington, D.C., and I want to welcome all of you to Amazon Tech. For those of you who are new to Amazon Tech, this is an annual forum for discussing and learning about the latest technological advances and vital technology-based tools that support conservation and sustainable development across the Amazon. Amazon Tech began 3 years ago in Peru with our sister organization, Conservación Amazónica, also known as ACCA, and it's grown every year. And this forum has provided an important platform to better connect technology and policy, to exchange ideas and pick up the latest trends and possibilities for conservation. This year, we added this first ever English session to our 4 Spanish sessions that took place over the last couple of weeks. I'm sure some of you who are on today's event participated in some of those, but if you haven't, for those of you who weren't able to participate, we have those online along with today's event at amazonconservation.org. So today's session is a high-level overview and discussion of the latest in technology and how organizations like ours, communities, and governments are investing and adapting technology to the needs of the conservation of the Amazon. So before we dive into the material of the day, I just want to take a second to thank a few of the organizations that have been supporting us over these many years as we've built out our capacity and technology. So first, the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, that's NORAD, the United States Agency for International Development, the International Conservation Fund of Canada, the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, the Errol Foundation, and Weiss Foundation, and a few others. That's really supported the building of our capacity and work in technology over the last 6 years. And all of this work prompted us to then set up this forum, which is now in its 3rd year. And special thanks to NORAD today for sponsoring our event today. So to kick off our discussion, without further ado, I want to introduce Henrik Fliflet, who will provide the welcome remarks and an exciting update from Norway. Henrik is a senior advisor at NICFI, Norway's International Climate and Forest Initiative, which is within the Norwegian Ministry of Climate and Environment. And Henrik is joining us today from Oslo, and we appreciate that, Henrik, that you're here with us, working a little late in the office since you're 6 hours ahead. So if you could turn on your microphone and camera and take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. And greetings from a dark and cold Oslo. On behalf of NICFI and the Ministry and NORAD, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to all of you today. You may have seen the news over the past months where Norway is announcing our intent to try to remove one particular bottleneck when it comes to data access, particularly the access to high-resolution optical satellite imagery. Our intention is to remove the costs associated with previously commercialized data, make it more accessible, and ease license restrictions. This has been a long process, and you may have seen in the news. And if not, we're happy to follow up. I encourage those of you who have not yet seen this to immediately take a little peek at planet.com/NICFI, where information about the freely accessible pantropical mosaics of optical imagery will be made available every month for free, where there are now user guides and facts and the like already translated to Spanish. And this evolving effort, where more will come, is an important step, we hope, in removing this one bottleneck that we have identified regarding the access to data. We hope very much that this will be a useful resource for you and all your partners, recognizing that data in itself does not stop deforestation or protect rights or conserve biodiversity. This data source and other sources need to be turned into actionable information, and that information needs to reach the right hands. For that, the forests, the local communities, governments and companies, and the world relies on you, the community of experts and practitioners. So I look forward to following the presentations today and the discussions, and hope we will all use this opportunity to learn from one another. And speaking for myself as the manager of this recent data purchase, I'm very eager to see what you will all be able to do with it in the coming years. Thank you.
So thank you, Henrik, and thank you again for being here this afternoon and this evening with us. Now for our opening remarks, I'd like to introduce Manuel Pulgar-Vidal. Manuel is the leader of the Climate and Energy Global Practice at WWF, that's the Worldwide Fund for Nature. And Manuel is also a former Minister of Environment in Peru. And he's also played an important part in the development of the Paris Climate Accords, as he was president of the COP20 during the UN Convention's 20th Conference of the Parties. So we're really looking forward to hearing from you today, Manuel, and helping us to frame today's discussion. So Manuel, please turn on your mic and your camera, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John. I am more than delighted to be part of this Amazon Tech. And first of all, my apologies to all the Northerns, because I am in a very sunny southern place of the planet. No, it is not to promote jealous of you, but that is the reality of the planet. So let me start to frame today's discussion by going back to the title, Science, Technology, and Governance for a Sustainable Amazon. So in that title, there are many elements that we should have into consideration to really frame a good discussion. The first one, it is the integration of the three elements: science, technology that can answer to that science, and governance to manage that technology. Amazon as a very specific, concrete, and fragile ecosystem or landscape, and sustainability as a concept, as a vision, as something that we are aiming, that we are working and seeking to address and to achieve. And let me use this phrase of Henrik. Thank you, Henrik. When you said that data is not enough, we should translate that data into actionable information. That is fully true. And I think that that would be part of today's discussion. So I would like to be a bit provocative with the panelists. I am not going to moderate the panel, but also through the moderator, by putting to you all a specific question, a specific task, to be more clear. Let's imagine that you are in a position in which you should define this concept, Amazonian appropriate technology. So Amazonian appropriate technology means different things. So what are those elements that should be included to address that concept of Amazonian appropriate technology? And I would introduce what I think, in my point of view, and for sure you can agree or disagree, I would like to make a brief description of 4 pillars that could help to define that concept. So what it is an Amazonian appropriate technology in my point of view? It is technology that could fit with a clear vision. So what it is important to recognize, it is what is that vision for the sustainable Amazon? Mostly if we recognize that the Amazon, it is in a tipping point, that we have already left behind the very old ideas of the Amazon as the big land for the planet, or when the Amazon is losing their ability, their capacity to capture carbon. So in that current reality of the Amazon as a tipping point, what it should be that vision to develop and to adopt technology that could help to really move toward that vision. That also must be related to our vision towards a net zero economy and planet, and also towards our vision to address nature loss. So that is the first element. The second element for this Amazonian appropriate technology, it is that it must help to address the threats. And when we think about threats, it is not just about climate and nature loss. Also, it is about illegal activities. Also, it is about people and its vulnerability. It is about people and its rights. and it is about the governance of the Amazon. So what are those threats that the technology can help us to address in a very effective way? The third pillar for me is that this technology must fit with the needs of the Amazon. And when I think about needs, I am thinking in a bottom-up process, so that we should develop or we should identify those needs based in the information that should be provided by the actors of the Amazon, mostly the indigenous people and the people who are used to living there, because that is the best way to identify those needs. And finally, it should create opportunities. It should, as Henrik mentioned, it should be translated into actionable information, and also it should be able to scale up. So it should be not only a technology that quickly it could be obsolete, but that can scale up into the next step. And Amazon Tech in Spanish, the last days, they have developed a lot of principles. I am not going to mention all of those. So it should be a technology feasible, accessible, that can scale, inclusive, transparent, sustainable, based on science, and that can respond to the vision of the people and the actors of the Amazon. So that is my idea for today. That is my idea to frame the discussion and to have you all trying to answer that question. What are that main element for that Amazonian appropriate technology? I will come back by the end with some closing and catching and capturing your ideas. So thank you very much, and giving back to you, John.
Thank you very much, Manuel, and I appreciate you setting the stage for the discussion for the rest of the afternoon. And now I'm going to pass on the meeting to our moderator, Enrique Ortiz. Enrique is the Senior Program Director at the Andes Amazon Fund. And Enrique, we're happy to have you here to facilitate this afternoon's discussion. The discussion's in your hand, and take it away.
Thank you, John, and welcome everybody again. What a difficult times we're living these days, you know, not only in the US, in the Amazon, but in the world. And it is these type of events and the actions that are identified in this meeting are also very important to look ahead. For today's event, we'll have two sessions of around 20 minutes each. The first one will cover the latest in science and technology solutions for conservation. And the second will highlight how governments are bridging the gap between technology, governance, and action. It is important, as it was said by Manuel and also by Henrik, that it's not only the technology is a tool, but as important as it is, we need to know what is useful, also keep adapting it and apply it to the threats, and also to see how it can pave the way for a future. You know, we are talking about the economy, and this should be a tool for identifying those opportunities, as well mentioned, Manuel, and also affordability. You know, it is amazing that today with a telephone, you know, the users are identifying what threats they have and also what opportunities they have. And we have seen that within the first 4 sessions of Amazon Tech. I encourage everybody, unfortunately it's in Spanish, but I encourage everybody to look at the Amazon Tech webpage, to listen to some of the presentations. Very, very interesting and also very informative. After both sections, we'll have another 20 minutes of questions and answers from the audience. So please submit your questions via Zoom chat and Zoom questions and answers box, or via Facebook, where we have live castings of these events. After the questions and answers, we'll hear from Manuel again, who will summarize the key takeaways from today's discussion and the previous Amazon Tech events. I hope that in that moment we can respond or have a better elements to for the challenge that Manuel has put in front of us. Going into the first panel, let me introduce our first panelist today, which is Darren Irwin. Dan is a research scientist at NASA and a global program manager for the NASA USA SERVIR program, which includes an initiative in the Amazon called SERVIR Amazonia. Dan, please turn on your microphone and camera, and let's start sharing your screen. And the microphone is yours.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. So when most people think of NASA, they imagine spaceships or rovers on Mars, or astronauts, or water found on the moon, like we recently announced. And of course, all of this is true, but a lot of people don't know that when NASA was founded in 1958, one of our initial goals was to study the Earth from space to advance scientific understanding and use that information to benefit society. And why Earth? Well, because Earth is also a planet. We study planets. And so it's a planet. And some say that life has been found here. And, you know, sometimes I hope it's intelligent life. And of course, sometimes I wonder. To monitor our planet.
Sorry for the interruption, but we need
Yes.
to put your presentation on the screen.
Can you see it?
No, I think you need to share your screen. I'm sorry.
I was sharing it. It might have stopped, but let me share it again.
You look good though, Dan. We see.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me try again. Okay. Take two. Can you see it now?
Yes.
There we go, and you can put it in
All
presentation.
right, excellent. All right, now you can see the presentation more than me. Anyway, so just going back, this is our constellation of satellites, and we're monitoring the entire planet every day. In fact, this is our current constellation. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see Sentinel-6 Mike Freilich, which we're going to launch a week from Saturday, and that's our newest satellite to measure sea level height. These satellites enable us to take pioneering observations of our home planet and to see the Earth in ways that we've never seen it before, to look at our soil, our water, the atmosphere, and combining this information, we can see the Earth as an interconnected system and see the So this animation shows let's see if I can get it animated. Let's try it again. Right, there it goes. This animation shows a progression of global surface temperature anomalies from 1880 up until last year. And the higher than normal temperatures are shown in red, and the lower than normal temperatures are shown in blue. And of course, the decade that just ended is the hottest on record. And every decade since the 60s has been hotter than the one before that. So it's pretty staggering to see it from this global perspective. And of course, this is an image of the nighttime lights from our VIIRS satellite day-night band. And it's extraordinary, of course, to see the cities, the urbanization, and of course, this type of data can also be used to find and look for new settlements. But one of the challenges, and it was really nice to hear some of the introductory remarks from Henrik and Manuel, is that you know, satellite data, it's great data, but there's that gap of that actionable information to be used as was discussed. That, you know, the science, the technology, and the governance, as Manuel talked about. So NASA and USAID joined forces 15 years ago to create the SERVIR program. It started as a small project and now has become a global network with regional centers in Africa and Asia, and our newest hub, what we call them, in South America. And SERVIR really brings together the best of NASA. We work in space, we travel into space, we use the unique vantage point of space, and USAID, who works around the world with that goal of what we say, connecting space to village and empowering countries around the world to use satellite information to address these critical challenges. We have 4 thematic service areas that we work in: agriculture and food security, water and water-related disasters, land cover and ecosystems, and weather and climate. And this is the map of the countries that we work in. We work in over 45 countries, and you can see the different hub organizations where we actually, through USAID, have people based and working as part of the network. SERVIR Amazonia is our newest hub, as I mentioned, and it was launched in December of 2018. I have to use the term launch since we're NASA. And it was with SIAT and ACCA, Imaflora, SIG, and Ecociencia, and other partners. And it covers the Amazon Basin in Colombia, Peru, Brazil, Ecuador, and Guyana, in Suriname. And the hub is working on various services related to fires, droughts, water resource management, and much more. And one of the pillars of our work is really this co-development model. It's not like we're developing a whole bunch of things at NASA and saying, here you go, but it's a true co-development based on those needs that Manuel talked about, and really building out the services together. And at NASA, they're really developed in region with that regional context, that appropriate technology context. And we at NASA provide that technical backstopping. So let me give you just a few examples very quickly. In Eastern and Southern Africa, we are mapping land cover. We use in over 14 countries. It used to take, we used to map for greenhouse gas inventories every decade using new tools like Google Earth Engine. We can actually map every single year, and actually the countries are doing it themselves. In places like the lower Mekong, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar, we've created a new system called the Regional Land Cover Monitoring System, where they're actually using primitives, basically biophysical characteristics like vegetation color or tree height, to map the land cover in new ways and be able to harmonize that and customize it across the region. In the Peruvian Amazon, coming closer to this community, of course, mining activity has increased, and traditional satellites, the optical satellites, can't collect data in the rainy season. So there's new radar satellites that enable us actually to peer through the clouds, especially in the rainy season. And the image on the left shows how mining activity has increased over the years in the region. And the image on the right, you can see the difference. You can see the optical data versus that radar data that can actually see through the clouds. Basically, the SERVIR Amazonia has created a new service called RAMI for radar mining and monitoring that allows monitoring of mining areas through these radar images to provide near real-time information on the mining activities to officials and other people that can use that type of information. We have a new global service called Collect Earth Online. Very excited that this now has, as of a week or so ago, the new Norwegian planet data that was talked about at the beginning that Henrik mentioned. And this is a new way we can actually crowdsource a way of collecting reference data for land cover monitoring. And if you're interested in using this, just go to collect.earth. It's free, and you can use it. And again, really a shout out to the Norwegian data, which is a huge complement to this service. And finally, the power of the SERVIR network really enables services in one region to be transferred and scaled to another region, or even the entire planet. And in his book, The Orbital Perspective, astronaut Ron Guerin talks about leveraging new technologies and networks and using them in new ways that we've never used it before. And at SERVIR, we are really leveraging and we've embraced that orbital perspective. And at NASA, we're really excited to continue to work and listen to the communities and continue to develop new satellites and new technologies to continue to monitor our home planet. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. I'm trying to start my video. Start the video. Okay, now I can. Thank you, Dan. It's amazing work being done at NASA. NASA always makes us feel a little bit like astronauts. Building off on what Dan has shared with us, our next two panelists will do a joint presentation about how satellite and other satellite-based technologies are helping us detect deforestation in real time in the Amazon. We'll first hear from Matt Feiner, the director of MAP, the monitoring of the IDEAM project at Amazon Conservation Association. Immediately followed by Sidney Novoa, the director of GIS and conservation technology at Conservación Amazónica in Peru. I'm sure they will tell us how this is being applied in the field, that you will see that in a very effective way. Matt, please turn on your microphone and camera, as well as Sidney, and start sharing your screen.
Great. Thank you, Enrique. Hello, everybody. All right. I trust everyone can see the screen. So I've really been enjoying the presentation so far. As Enrique said, I'm going to build off nicely the some of the comments we've heard so far. Particularly really going to emphasize the incredible and still increasing power of satellites for the conservation of tropical forests and the Amazon. Specifically, we at Amazon Conservation, together with our colleagues and our sister organization in Peru, we've really been working towards advancing the field of real-time, satellite-based real-time monitoring. So the big breakthrough that we really want to emphasize is we now have this unprecedented ability, thanks to satellites, to see across the most vast and remote tracts of the Amazon in real time, and then take that cutting edge information and try to convert it to policy action. As Enrique noted, I'm going to first talk about the Mop program and then hand it off to my colleague Sidney coming in from Peru. So Mop is our Amazon Conservation's real-time monitoring program, launched in 2015, so a little over than 5 years old now. We initially focused on real-time deforestation monitoring, and most recently have been getting into real-time degradation monitoring, and in this case, talking about logging and real-time fire monitoring. So these are the three pillars of Mop currently, and I'm going to quickly go through each of these three major components. So for deforestation, this is our core work, bread and butter work, if you will. We have a basic three-part methodology with the ultimate goal of achieving conservation action. And so I've been appreciating the remarks thus far, because we definitely have a major focus on how do you link the technology with the policy. So to quickly just run through just how we're working to do that, basically combining technologies. It starts with early warning alerts. These are based on Landsat imagery, 30-meter resolution. These are early warning forest loss alerts. Again, based on pixel differences between the latest Landsat images. And they basically come up with like pixels on the screen like this. And these are developed by the University of Maryland and presented on Global Forest Watch. And so we really, spend a lot of time analyzing these alerts and really trying to prioritize and identify the most urgent of the alerts. So for these identified urgent alerts, we then zoom in on the high resolution imagery. And our real go-to tool recently has been Planet. And so Planet has been our secret weapon, but now, as we've heard from Henrik, the remarkable agreement that this type of imagery, at least the monthly base maps, are going to be available for anyone. So you can see the power of Planet 3-meter resolution, the ability to basically take these pixels, these early warning alerts, and in this case, confirm that it's illegal gold mining deforestation in the southern Peruvian Amazon. And then we take these these urgent alerts that we've confirmed in the high resolution imagery, and then quickly try to get reports out there. And so we have two types of reports. We have the public Mop reports that hopefully a lot of you have seen, but we also have a line of confidential reports that we send directly to governments. In this case, the Peruvian government. We quickly write this up, send a confidential report. And in this case, shortly thereafter, there was a major raid on this site, taking down a lot of the illegal mining installations. So this is like the real formula that we're looking for in terms of combining the cutting edge technology, reporting on it, and then ultimately achieving conservation action. Now, for degradation, as I mentioned, this is a newer line of work. Now, degradation is a challenge in the Amazon, as as I say degradation here, I'm really talking about logging and the selective logging of high value species. Now, the big challenge is even with the high resolution imagery, the 3-meter resolution, you cannot see this type of logging. For this, you need the very high resolution imagery, sub-meter, 50 centimeters, to actually get into to see illegal logging with satellites. So the big breakthrough that we're experiencing now, particularly with our work, is the ability to task very high resolution satellites. So for example, here, the planets line of a growing constellation of very high resolution SkySats. So we have this new ability to basically send these powerful satellites to precise coordinates that we've identified of suspected illegal activity, such as illegal logging, and obtain images such as this. So again, this is 50 centimeters. And you can see the power of the imagery where you can actually get down to the level of an actual cut tree. You can see logging camps, you can see a cut tree like this. So we're really piloting this line of work of how to get this type of information to policymakers to really do something that's never been done before, which is try to react to illegal logging in real time. Because typically most illegal logging is identified way too late with a boat or a truck that's been stopped with illegal wood. So really trying to use this satellite technology to try to really kind of come up with a new line of work of real-time logging monitoring. And finally, with fires, we really first started getting into fires last year and really doubled down with that work this year. Some major satellite advances going on as well. So on your screen, you see 2 satellite-based images, both from the same day this year, so very recent, September 13th of this year. On the left is the traditional, commonly used heat-based satellite alerts. You can see with these alerts, these are the kind of alerts that went viral last year. It's good data, good historical data, but they also tend to give the misleading impression that the entire Amazon is burning down. What we've really been focused on is a new satellite, Sentinel-5 satellite from the European Space Agency, which is detecting a different type of data. Instead of heat anomalies, it's focused on aerosol emissions. So that's basically the smoke coming off of the fire. So the great thing about aerosol is the emissions are directly related to the amount of biomass being burned. So in other words, we now have a way to filter out the hundreds and thousands of smaller fires and just focus on what we call major fires, those burning a lot of biomass. So you can see here in the right, we can actually, taking the hundreds and thousands of alerts, we can actually see where the major fires are actually concentrated in the southeast Brazilian Amazon and adjacent Pantanal. So again, we really demonstrated the power of this data this year. And we really hope there's a much greater uptake of this type of aerosol-based information next year by civil society and government. So to recap, MOP real-time monitoring with the real goal of linking technology and policy, as we've heard Manuel set up, that's really our goal, working in these 3 main pillars of deforestation, degradation, and fire. So with that, I'll hand it off to my colleague, Sidney from Peru.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation to be part of this panel. Next, please. All right. Well, all the satellite advances mentioned by Matt are also being taken to another level, thanks to the integration of other types of cutting-edge technologies, tools, and methodologies. Some of the greatest innovations are in the use of new devices, such as drones and radar, but the most impressive advances are computer-based resources derived from the use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and cloud computing. I'm going to talk about these technologies in the next few minutes and how they are complementing the satellite monitoring in the fight against illegal deforestation. Next, please. In recent years, drones become the most attractive and cool tool for monitoring and surveillance because they are relatively cheap user-friendly, and can cover vast areas. As part of our work in Conservación Amazónica, we built a comprehensive model to combine this big mass data from early deforestation alerts as GLAD system with the analysis of satellite imagery and provide that to local communities and authorities so they can use drone technology to obtain image, to obtain evidence of illegal activity and plan an action on the ground, as well as using as legally admissible evidence in courts to prosecute offenders. Next, please. Matt, are you there? All right, thank you. Another technology that complement the satellite monitoring now is radar. Radar is an active remote sensing technology that has the advantage of being able to see through clouds, which is something that a regular satellite, that optical satellite can't do. So using radar allows us to have information even in the long rainy season where there are a lot of clouds covering the rainforest. Earlier, Dan showed the results of our participation on the NASA USAID SERVIR Amazonia program, where we developed this web app that allows us to monitor deforestation caused by mining, by gold mining, using radar technology. This online tool called RAMI, from Radar Mining Monitoring, it's a new way to complement our deforestation monitoring activities, and it allows us to give us decision makers real-time information of mining advance through the entire year, rain or shine. Next, please. Also, Dan in his presentation talked about this huge number of satellites that have been launched into space. Currently, we have more than 500 Earth observation satellites orbiting the Earth. The amount of information generated increased exponentially in the last 5 years. So we moved from talking about gigabytes of information to talking about petabytes of data. Since one petabyte is equivalent 1 million gigabytes, you can imagine that a new challenge is storing, sorting, and analyzing this much data in a way that is fast and reliable. Next, please. First of all, we moved from a traditional approach, which relied heavily on the hardware and software capabilities of wherever was analyzing the data to develop a final assessment of what the data means. Now we are overcoming these issues around hardware capacity by using virtual tools such as Google Colabs, which is short for Collaboratory, which give free access to computer resources from Google company. In terms of software, new platforms such as Google Earth Engine and the Google Cloud help improve our efficiency in processing, storing large amounts of data, and viewing the results through the generation of very nice web apps. My colleague Matt Feiner showed a new fire tracking app based on aerosol monitoring. We were able to create this app by gathering traditional satellite monitoring and apply the Google Earth Engine and other big data technologies to cross-reference the satellite information with thousands of fire alerts from NASA, from the firm's initiative. Next, please. The last advance that I want to cover is the artificial intelligence. Matt, during his presentation, showed how we want to do this next step regarding the detection of these small pieces of losses like produced by illegal logging. Now, well, AI open up a world of opportunities for the implementation of threat detection techniques based on coding and programming. The best example of how AI is changing the forest monitoring approach are the GLAD alerts from the University of Maryland. This system based on machine learning algorithms that use satellite image to automatically detect forest loss every 16 years is spread along of the worldwide. Today, by integrating artificial intelligence with very high resolution imagery, we can even detect these smaller losses, most of them generated by illegal logging single trees in the Amazon. And by training machines using these AI models and using automatized detection algorithms, we can understand the real impact of illegal logging, which is something that traditional satellite imagery alone could not do before. Well, these technologies can help take a real-time satellite monitoring of deforestation and forest degradation to the next level and give the communities and authorities the information they need to take immediate action. Thank you. Back to you, Enrique.
Thank you, Sidney. This is quite exciting. I would just like to complement that the map work is also basically in the Amazon basin, emphasizing, even though it's emphasizing more in Peru, it's also covering Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador. So that's a wide coverage. And it's a very interesting way also how this information is influencing policy. And we will see later more about that. These eyes in the sky are extremely useful, but we need to also look what's happening under the canopy. We have been hearing how these technologies work above the forest canopy. And our next panelist will be taking us under the canopy to talk about biotechnology advances happening on the ground. Adrian Forsyth is our next panelist. He's a tropical ecologist with over 40 years of experience in the Amazon, and also is currently a strategic advisor of for the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, as well as a founder of Amazon Conservation Association, and also the Peruvian partner of ACCA, Conservación Amazónica. Adrian, please turn on your microphone and camera and take it away.
Hello. I've started my video, but it's not showing me. And I've got my video off and my microphone off, but I'm not on the screen. That's okay. I don't have a presentation. I'm just going to speak to you. Last November, I was walking in downtown Washington, D.C., and I got a call on my cell phone from Peru. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered it anyways. And it was an automatic message, a machine talking to me from remote forests, off the grid, not near a road. And it was telling me it could hear a chainsaw, and these are the coordinates. So I texted a biologist I knew at Los Amigos Biological Station, and I said, can you check this out? And about 20 minutes later, she said, yes, that's our boatman Samuel clearing a fallen tree off of Trail 10. And that's when I realized that technological advances had made stuff small enough, cheap enough, accessible enough that we could really get intelligence under the canopy that would make a difference from conservation. That device that was talking to me was something that Topher White of Rainforest Connections made out of, discarded cell phones on a shoestring budget with the AI to recognize chainsaws or shotguns or whatever. And he and Andy Whitworth from OSA Conservation had climbed up a great big canopy tree and installed it a year previously. And there's no reason why that technology can't be on the border of every national park, every indigenous community, providing real-time alerts to people with cell phones who can take action, whether they're government or whether they're community leaders. So I wanted to talk about the fact that we're now entering a phase where real deployment of these things under the canopy and on the ground and on the water is feasible and cost effective. And I'll just give you an example of some of the things that we're working on this year with more foundation support in that area. For example, now you can move a genomics lab with a genomics nanobarcode reader that's not much bigger than this cell phone into the jungle and run it off of solar panels. You can scoop a bucket of water out of the river, and that device will tell you what fish you have in that river with great certainty as to what species. It can even probably start to predict abundance. Someone can catch one of those fish and not have to send a sample of it to some lab in some large city in the country or outside of the country. They can take it to a device right by the river, and that will tell you how much mercury is in that fish. And you can take that device and call some community leader or some official with a satellite phone that's this big now and tell them whether that mercury level is safe for pregnant women to consume or not. So these things seem like science fiction 10 years ago. They're not. They're here now, and we need to get them deployed in a way that gets this information, as people have said, into a usable form. And the key thing about this is most of it comes to people through a cell phone, a highly democratic way to collect and share information. With simple apps, a farmer can photograph an insect they don't recognize, find out if it's an invasive, harmful, exotic, get a name on it, and then get information from organic farmers in Japan about how you control it and become free from the tyranny of a pesticide salesman who's going to sell them something that kills everything and destroys the food chain supporting bats and birds. So what we're seeing now is technology is going to be a democratic way in which citizen scientists and communities can participate in the conservation of these previously difficult areas that you couldn't see into, whether it was satellites or you couldn't see into beneath the canopy. So there's a lot of exciting stuff that is still in development. For example, this year, pandemics permitting, we'll be testing whether you can build a piezoelectric fabric vest and put it on a taper in a peccary. And when that animal moves, the stretching of that fabric generates electricity. That animal can be carrying an acoustic sensor that detects a chainsaw, a shotgun, the hounds of hunters. It can be carrying an aerosol sniffer that can tell if a fire is burning upwind. And the animal itself can participate in the management of a forest and its own salvation. So this becomes very important in these remote wilderness areas. For example, just to the north of this area where I got that chainsaw alert are uncontacted indigenous people who for a century have been living in voluntary isolation, went there to escape slavery and the rubber boom and are still there, extremely vulnerable to things like COVID-19 and already being invaded by illegal loggers. How can we be in those forests without actually physically being there? We can only be there through conservation technologies in the sky and on the ground. That's the only way we're going to protect these remote wilderness people at risk of genocide and habitats that are so wild and off the grid that governments can't really have an effective presence on the ground without the assistive technology. So I think it's an extremely exciting time, and now's the time to both be trying stuff out in the treetops and also deploying it and seeing what works and what doesn't work right now. It's not science fiction, it's here, we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. I must admit that every time I hear when you say all these things, I go to second sources, and it's true. You know what you're saying about the capacities and how far this can go. It's evolving so fast. It's quite remarkable. Your last part basically is leading us to our next speaker, is Daniel Rodriguez Fernandez. Daniel is right now in Spain, so also working late. Daniel is a specialist in the protection of and contact indigenous peoples, as well as a technical advisor for FENAMAD. FENAMAD is a prominent indigenous federation in southeastern Peru, Federación Nativa Madre de Dios. Daniel will talk us about how indigenous groups are using some of the technology that has been presented so far to protect the Amazon. Daniel, please turn on your computer and microphone and camera and take it away.
Okay, thank you, Enrique. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Indigenous Federation of Madre de Dios, FENAMAD, where I work as part of its team of advisors. I will start saying that FENAMAD is an indigenous organization of the Peruvian Amazon and is representative of the indigenous peoples of the Madre de Dios River Basin, 7 ethnic groups and 37 communities, 35 in the region of Madre de Dios and 2 in Cusco. And it was created in 1982 by the communities to defend their territories and collective rights. Next, please. So in this opportunity, I want to share with you how FENAMAD is incorporating technology to strengthen 2 monitoring systems that are currently operating with the participation of the communities. The first one is the protection of the rights of isolated and initial contact peoples and their territories. And the second one is the protection of indigenous communities and forests from external pressures from illegal activities such as logging, mining, colonization, and others. And in particularly, I'll speak about a specific area of work of FENAMAD called the Veeduría, forestry oversight system. The main aim of this presentation is to broadly summarize the ongoing process in each one of these 2 community-based monitoring systems, with the aim to contribute to development and new ideas. No? Since both of them, there's been some developments in each one of these 2 monitoring systems in recent years. Next, please. Yes. Okay. In this map, you can see the territorial jurisdiction of FENAMAD and the region of Madre de Dios. And as you can see, it's located in the southeastern Peruvian Amazon in the border area of Brazil and Bolivia. Next. And next. Yes, thank you. Most of the region is covered by tropical rainforest, which occupies an estimated area of 7.9 million hectares, which is 19.5 million acres. The region is also known as the biodiversity capital of Peru, and actually 60% of the region's surface is categorized as nature protected areas. Madre de Dios also stands out for its cultural diversity, and the region is home to the ancestral territory of 7 different ethnic groups and a number of highly vulnerable indigenous peoples in isolation and initial contact. In this slide, you can see this cluster of nature protected areas and indigenous lands in Madre de Dios, no? And which actually makes up for the least intervened and best preserved forest areas in Madre de Dios. The next one. Actually, the social and environmental importance of Madre de Dios and also its fragility is even more prominent when you consider that this area is also part of a large, vast transnational territory of isolated and initial contact peoples of Panoan and Arawakan family, which is represented in red and gray. overlapping. This is not obviously an territory exclusively inhabited by isolated peoples, but also shared territories with other indigenous groups. The next one, please. And the next one. Yes. Okay, so this cluster of these territories are actually threatened by development initiatives, colonization, and unregulated extractivism and other activities. No? And the background context of these socio-environmental conflicts in the region is exemplified in this series of maps. In the first one, you see the logging concessions. The next one, which is the extractive frontier. This is the gold mining concessions, as you can see, overlapped with the lands of the lands of the indigenous communities. The next one, and the road building. I'm just the next one and the next one. Yes, the last one is a projection. Yeah. So this final image actually summarizes the overlapping existing between high impact economic activities and conservation and indigenous rights in the region. The context on the ground is very dynamic. This is just a fixed picture, but the pressures and the advance of this frontier towards new areas of the forest and indigenous territories is actually very fast. And Madre de Dios shows record high deforestation levels, many of them associated to gold mining activities. No, the next, just a visual image of that point. In response of the challenges of this context, the FENAMAD has established so far 2 community-based systems of monitoring. The first one, yeah, is a system that aim to protect isolated peoples in isolation, and FENAMAD has a long trajectory promoting their rights and the protection of these groups under the principle of non-contact, like around 3 decades. The next one, please. Okay, in this area, community level forest monitoring is one of the central protective measures implemented, no? As it provides the basis to prevent forceful contacts and other risky situations involving external actors and potential threats and impacts to the territories. The next one, please. Yeah. Okay. As you can see, the monitoring system is mostly organized around network. It's actually focused on areas shared by indigenous communities, indigenous people settled in communities, and indigenous peoples in isolation, right? So this monitoring system is mostly organized around a network of control posts, which are operated by FENAMAD and the communities and the government authorities, specifically the Ministry of Culture, right? Next one. Right. The previous one, please. Yeah. These are the main elements of the local system of protection of isolated peoples, right? And it's a very, in a way, traditional, or, you know, it doesn't really involve complex technologies, no? It's basically tracking the evidences of isolated peoples to be able to prevent encounters, contacts, and identify any threats to the territory, no? Now, while these on-the-ground actions are key, the protection of these vast and highly threatened areas demand also new approaches to monitoring. And FENAMAD has recently incorporated satellite imagery, and I'm going to show you a specific case that we used like 2 years ago. The next one. Yeah. Okay. So this is the territorial reserve of Madre de Dios. It was created in the year 2002 to protect isolated peoples. It's an area of around 800,000 hectares. And after FENAMAD presented evidence that isolated peoples living beyond this area, the original area, the government agreed to expand this reserve in 2016. Well, the main problem of that was that the expansion included areas of logging concessions where the presence of isolated peoples have been demonstrated, as you can see. The next one. Okay. Right. So the expansion agreement is still pending so far from November 2016. And the logging activities in the proposed area of expansion are continuing. This context is particularly worrying in this context because the existing threat of COVID. So as you can see, FENAMAD was able to use satellite images to show the next one, please. The progress of the work in this area that was supposed to be protected from the activities of the local company. And these are the roads and camps. Next. The previous one. Yeah. So FENAMAD complemented the use of satellite imagery with field expeditions to show the large-scale environmental impacts on the ground. And this is the case of this road or bridge. Next. Okay. The next one, please. And moreover, the threats faced by isolated peoples by external actors were further illustrated by camera trap photos in the nearby control post of Cernamp, which showed a group of isolated peoples in the surroundings of the house, of the infrastructure. And you can see the distance of the road and the control post is a very small distance of 9 kilometers. Next one. And these are the camera trap photos taken by the personnel of the the next one and the next one. So as a whole, the use of satellite images, fieldwork, and these images clearly show a picture of of the kind of threats and vulneration of rights that are happening now in this area. Okay. So the next, I will move now to a second community-based system of monitoring, and it is the Veeduría Forestal. In response to external pressures and threats across the Peruvian Amazon, indigenous organizations have created their own forest oversight programs, or Veedurías. And these Veedurías are technical units dedicated to building capacities to improve the management of the forests and to provide support to defend territorial rights. The Peruvian law actually recognizes indigenous and local monitoring as comités de vigilancia y control forestal comunitario. The next one. FENAMAD's own Veeduría Forestal was created in 2003. Its main objective actually are, threats to the land of the communities from illegal activities. And although also it also works with the communities in strengthening forest governance and good practices. The next one. The structure of a Veeduría Forestal includes a technical unit, which is based in FENAMAD's office. And among its work, it builds capacities, provides support to the monitoring work in the community, and also coordinates the appropriate actions to address the alerts and reports received from the community. The next one. Yes.
Let's simplify to a minute more to continue with the program, please.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay. So the second element of the Veeduría Forestal is a community-based monitoring system. So far, 18 participant communities and 40 trained certified monitors and veedores. The next one, please. Yeah, so far, the Veeduría has strengthened its capacities by the use of two new technologies. The first one is the Forest Link system, which enables the community to transmit reports, georeference reports, even in areas with no mobile or internet community. And this has been developed in partnership between FENAMAD and Rainforest Foundation UK. The next one. A second technology that is being used, the previous one was started, the use of the previous one was in 2016. This one is more recent in 2019. And the use of drones is started to use, it's complementary to the Forest Link system. And now both drones and the Forest Link technology are a first system of real-time alerts. And the system is operating, but it's still in very early stages of development. Now FENAMAD is working to strengthen these capacities with satellite alerts, establishing alliances with Amazon Conservación and ACCA as main partners. And this would be an additional system of alerts that are available for FENAMAD and its communities, and which would provide data for ground truthing activities. Well, this is, I'm going to go through this monitoring, the different steps of the system, monitoring and collection, reporting, database and planning, verification, and see, next, please. Next, and enforcement. And just to say that it is important to mention that from 2018 to 2020, FENAMAD submitted 15 legal actions based on alerts generated in communities. And these actions have led to arrests and the seizure of mining equipment across Madre Dios region. In 2019, thanks to those actions, more than 1.5 million of illegal mining equipment was destroyed by the authorities. Thank you so much, and I'm sorry that I went over the time.
Thank you, Daniel. This is a very important subject. You know, this is a responsibility that we all share in Brazil, in Peru, in Colombia, and Ecuador, with protecting the isolated tribes in the Amazon. We have a video that we're gonna leave in our webpage of Amazon Conservation Association, as well as in Amazon Tech, of some of the users. You know, the video we have is of Flor Rumayna, who is a local business owner in Peru, whose family manages an ecotourism concession. And it shows how their family are using real-time monitoring technology tools to detect illegal activity in their concession. We also have other videos of how Brazilian collectors are also using the technology. And it's quite remarkable how it goes all the way to a user in the forest and trying to improve their productivity, but also prevent illegal acts. So we will leave that video in our webpage, and please visit to see Flor and our other videos we have there. It's time to move now to the next panel. And thanks again for all our technology experts. Before I move to it, I think I was asked to take a photo of all of us, or maybe we'll leave that for later. Yeah. Oh yeah, please, if the panelists could just take a moment to turn on your videos so our staff can take a picture. We appreciate it. It will only take a couple of seconds. Please, everybody. And while they do that, it's a reminder to everyone to please continue submitting your questions via Zoom chat, questions and answers box, or via social media. We will be posting, reviewing questions for the panel discussion after the next section. Thank you. Now we can turn our videos off. So switching gears, we'll talk about how governments are using some of these technologies and partnering with local NGOs and communities to implement, to effectively bridge the gap between having the right information from high-tech solutions, building effective public policies, and taking action on the ground to combat these forest crimes. I would like to introduce our first speaker, our first panelist in the session comes with an impressive CV. Is Fabiola Muñoz, Peru's former Minister of the Environment, actually for 2 terms, former Minister of Agriculture. And Fabiola has also worked as an Executive Director of the Peruvian National Forest and Wildlife Service, SERVIR. Fabiola, please turn on your microphone and camera and start sharing your screen.
Okay, but we need permission to start the camera. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Enrique. Thank you so much for the opportunity to stay here. I want to share with you my, okay, I think this. You can see my.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you so much. This is a special moment in the country. We have a political situation that it's very, very hard for us, especially for the environmental sector, because today we received some of the new proposals of some congressmen, and we are really worried about that. I think we need to be really alert about this. Okay, thank you for the invitation to have this opportunity to talk with you. And I'm going to share with you some ideas. And one of the key phrases that we listened the last weeks, it's without science, it's not future. And I believe in that, and all of us, of course, but it's not enough. I think that it's really important, and we need to be sure that we have all the technology that is possible, but like Manuel says today and the other days, what is the key technology for us, for the Peru, for Amazonian, for the people that we have? And we are talking about the decision levels. We have 3 levels that I want to share with you some ideas. One is the technology and the information that we can use for public policy. And we are going to share some ideas about the forest zoning, for example. The second level is the management of the land management. And we are going to share some ideas about Operation Mercury, that it's one of the most important decisions that we take in the government to stop illegal mining in Peru and recover the forest. But especially help the people, the local people, the small producers, the native communities that are fighting with this problem for a long, long time. And the third level is how can we use technology, for example, to increase the sustainable production. And traceability is one of the key elements in this topic. For example, in the level of forest zoning, we have a lot of different kind of information. And the government is trying to use technology to create some database, some systems, and shared information. Interoperability is one of the key elements, because it's not easy to have information, to have access to the technology, for example, for a local government. And for that reason, it's really important that if one entity in the government has the opportunity to have information, that information needs to be open. And all the other parts in the government or the civil society, the native communities, the local, or the regional or national level of the government can use that information. We need to open the information. And if we have that kind of information, and it's good information, we are going to have a better opportunity to develop good policies, public policy. But information is not enough. We need to go to the field and talk with the people and validate that information. And this is one of the key elements that sometimes we don't have the resources, or not all the people believe that it's important to go to the field, or we don't have the idea, the possibilities, different things. And for that reason, for example, one of the challenge that we have in the forestry sector, it's when we define the permanent production forest, we take the decision over big part of the land, but then we discover that there are people, communities, users, and it's some complex decision after that process. And for that reason, it's really important to have the opportunity to take the information, to receive the information, to use technology, but it's really important to validate. If we go to the other level, we are going to have example like Operation Mercury, and we have technical information. And I want to say, use this opportunity to say thank you for ACCA that helped us a lot with the information during long time with the alerts that Matt mentioned today. And I think it's really important that we can use that information. But in this case, it's information, it's really important, but it's not enough too. For example, we have the information on the land, like the presentation of FENAMAD, no? We have the information of the deforestation and the increase of that. This is ACCA information, for example. We try to go the land and identify different places with that information, and decided to make an operation with the police and the local government and the regional government. We work with the people, and then goes to the field. With all that information, we can plan an action. And it's difficult, it's not easy. And we are trying to work together with the Fiscalía, with different organizations of the civil societies. And there's a lot of different problems, but the use of the information, the use of the technology help us a lot, but it's not enough. We need to work, for example, in the governance. It's really important to work together in the different levels of the government, share information, make good plans, but work together. And the other level, it's, for example, one level that I think we are not using enough the technology that it's possible, it's in the sustainable production. One of the problems that we have in the country is that we have a lot of important agricultors, producers, but we have a challenge. The actors involved in deforestation are really a lot, but in a small scale. Normally, we define that it's less than 5 hectares that they have, and they deforested a little here, other little here, and there's a lot in the country. We have the vision of have a Peruvian tropical agriculture and forest management different. We have the opportunity to make a transformation of the model that we have in the production, but we need to change the vision that we have in the traditional agriculture. And for that, key aspect is interchange information and knowledge of different technologies. The example that FENAMAD mentioned, it's really important, but we need to develop capacities. In that case, people develop capacities for the control of the land. but we need to develop capacities for the management for the production. And it's really important that we work, for example, for the traceability of the chain of palm oil, cocoa, coffee. And I think that it's a huge opportunity that we have. We have the commitment of the subnational level of the government. Well, we have from the past, I don't know in this moment, but we have some months ago the government's commitment, the national government's commitment to work in a free deforestation strategy. Today, it's really important that we work together and we improve the jurisdictional sustainability initiative that we have. The Coalición por una Producción Sostenible is an initiative that we was developing in the country, working with the different regions. And for all of this, I think, for example, that MINAM developed a green protocol and financial ecosystem. Manuel begins that when was the minister, then continued this effort, and recently there's a new edition of this green protocol, and I think it's a good thing. But it's not enough. We need to, and I agree with Manuel and the proposal of ACCA, I think we need to discuss about what is the future for our forest and what are the key technology that we need to work on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fabiola. That was a very visionary. I must say, I want to highlight the ground truthing that you mentioned, and also the comment from our NASA friend, from Dan, that remote sensing without ground truthing is remote non-sensing. And you're totally right with that. Our next panelist is Hector Gonzalez Rubio, Technical Advisor for IDEAM, the Institute of Hydrology, Meteorology, and Environmental Studies, which is a Colombian government agency responsible for monitoring the environment in the country. We share similar problems with Colombia, but not exactly the same. And we will hear a bit more how IDEAM is working on the issues there. Hector, please turn on your microphone and camera and start sharing your screen. Hector there? Hector, could you raise your hand if you're there? Sorry for that. Well, it sounds like we have a little problem here. Hector, are you there? Well, I guess we have to move on. And before, if we cannot solve this problem, I would like to repeat that we are going to move to the question and answer session, and I will ask Fabiola to turn your video for a couple seconds so we can take a screenshot to our social media. Only for a couple seconds, please. Oh, it's so sad that Hector is not in the picture. Anyway, thanks to all the panelists for the great insights and to the audience for submitting their questions. And time is always the enemy, and because of that, we cannot actually address all of them. But we'll try to get as many as possible. So when I will ask a question, please, the panelists who is the question is directed to, please turn on your video microphone, and also please remind you to use no more than 2 minutes for the answers. There have been many questions, and it's very hard to be in the position of actually selecting which one, but I will try to be fair. I would like to start with Dan. Dan, what do you think is what is next in the evolution of satellites, and how do you predict it will contribute to conservation?
Yeah, I think, let me get my video going. Whoops, it won't come on. But anyway, so, I think right now there's multiple things that are happening. I mean, a lot of this we focused on forestry. As I mentioned, there are new satellites, like Matt mentioned, looking at aerosols. We're launching one next week on sea level height. And I think it's really, it's the integration of these different data sets that are coming from these satellites. And I also think, we talked a lot about, Sidney talked about machine learning and AI. I think all of those are important. I think another thing that is just absolutely so important is what we call analysis ready data, that we're able to, and we're seeing this with the planet data, and that's one of the biggest challenges. I mean, we're just having this explosion of data. And one of the challenges is being able to get that data quickly in a usable format. And there's a lot of people, there's technologies like Cog and Stack and other things that are really enabling and empowering people to use that. So I think it's a combination right now of new satellites that are looking at different biophysical characteristics, whether it be aerosol, sea level height, forestry, bringing those together and being able to get the data in formats that enable us to analyze it and use it in machine learning and AI mechanisms in a very, very quick way. So I think that's probably my response on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Again, too many questions. There have been a lot of questions about MAP program. I would like to direct these ones to Matt and Sidney. In 2019, there was an incredible international attention to Amazon fires, and all this went viral. Based on the findings of MAP program, this year's fire season was actually even worse. Based on your fire app, how were the two fire seasons different, and how governments use technology to better address fire prevention and management efforts? Matt and Sidney?
Okay. Yeah, great question. Yeah, because one thing, so I got to the point of we're able to filter out all the smaller fires and identify where the major fires are. The coolest part that I actually didn't get to is then we can then zoom in on where those major fires using planet imagery and actually get eyes on these major fires. And so basically we pieced together, two different major scenarios that I don't think I think are pretty novel findings. One is the majority of the fires, particularly last year, 2019, but also this year, is that the majority of the fires are actually burning areas that are recently deforested. So you have, using the Planet Archives, we see where the major fires are. Then using the Planet Archives, we can see that that area was actually deforested in August 2019. It was actually deforested in March 2020. So really, this major finding that a lot of these major fires are actually burning areas that were recently deforested. And so, that makes the issue, it's not just a fire management issue all of a sudden, it's a deforestation issue as well. It's if you're going to tackle fires, you actually have to tackle deforestation first, because most of these fires are burning recently deforested areas. Now, what we saw, what was a bit different this year than last year, is around September, the dry season was a bit more intense this year and last year. And we did see a major shift to actual forest fires, which I think was in the public perception last year. But this year it actually happened, where Amazon rainforest was actually burning this year, I think much more than it did last year. And so I think that's, I was saying that I think that's an important formula for next year in terms of, the first half of the fire season is really linked to burning these recently deforested areas. And then we have to be very careful of knowing when intense dry, because the dry season this year was actually predicted. So we knew it was going to happen. And in these drier years, just know that we're going to see this shift to actual forest fires. And so I just hope there's a lot more. Basically, I think we need to get by these heat anomaly maps that, we just see like these thousands of red dots. I just think there's, more data out there. So I think we really need to kind of go to the next level and really build off of this information. So that's Brazil. And then Bolivia, you know, we worked a lot this year with our colleagues, and you know, Bolivia is a bit different dynamic, and there we actually saw a lot of fires in the savanna and dry forest ecosystem. And the aerosol emissions just work great in Bolivia as well, in terms of, you know, really being able to pinpoint where the major fires are. And our colleagues in Bolivia were sending that information every morning to the Bolivian protected area services. A lot of these fires were in protected areas. So I just think there needs to be a lot more, maybe in this off season, now that the fire season is pretty much over, I just think there needs to be a lot more capacity building about this new resource. And so governments can, you know, I think this was the first year, a little bit last year, that really demonstrated the power of this new data. You know, aerosol combined with planet imagery. And I really think there needs to be a lot more work with civil society and government to use it, to kind of build off of the traditional heat-based data.
Thank you, Matt. There have been a lot of questions, and what I would like to refer one to Fabiola. You mentioned about the changes that we are seeing right now and today, you know, from the government, Peru, and the question is how can we ensure that these steps forward, for example, the use of these technologies that we learned today, how can we assure that these are applied, or all these improvements are actually in some ways bulletproof to changes in which parties?
Okay, perfect.
Fabiola? Can you put your
I am,
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I don't listen to you. No.
Yeah, how can we assure that the progress that we have made is going to continue, considering that there are all these changes as we are seeing, for example, today in Peru?
It's difficult because in this moment there are some pressures. For example, today a congressman presented a proposal in the Congress to open the possibility to do mining in the water. This is one of the discussions that we have for a long time, and we have an agreement with the Minister of Mining that it's not possible in this moment to discuss that, because we need to stop illegal mining on the land, and it's not easy. We have a lot of different problems about that, and for that reason, it's really important that we stay very near about the proposals of the Congress. For the government, because I see one of the questions, for the government, it's really important to use information, and the mention that I do with ACCA, it's an example that we can use that information and take decisions. The Fiscalia use that information and take decisions. We receive a lot of cooperation, USAID, and the German cooperation, and others that help the government, the local governments, and other institutions to receive information or to use technology to develop capacities. This is one of the key elements. And with that, we improve the system that we have. And it's really important because we have a really important gap between the capacities in the national government and in the local or regional governments. And all of us needs to work to reduce that gap.
Thank you, Fabiola. And again, time is always against us. And I would like to finish this part of the questions and repeat that several questions will be addressed directly to the panelists, and they will answer to you on those things that are still remaining there. Adrian, I'd like to ask you a question. From the perspective of funders and organizations who want to support this work, what is missing? What can to be done to move the field of technology for conservation forward? How do you see that?
Yeah, well, look, there's very little funding for this, right? It's done on a shoestring. So one thing is funders need to move more to the edge of where new things need to be developed. And funders need to be looking at how do we drive experimental technologies, you know, to the point where they're ready for the marketplace. Like right now, camera traps, everyone can buy a camera trap. You can get them at Walmart, you can get them in Lima, you can get them anywhere, and everyone is using them. You saw FENAMAD was using them to detect uncontacted people, you know, et cetera. So that's what you really want. You want funding to set up a supply chain where you go from experimental development to it becoming readily available in the marketplace, because governments are reactive. They are not proactive. This field will move when civil society has access to these tools and are using them, and that information is available to the press and media and to advocacy groups. So I think getting the technology in the hands of as many people as possible and using democratic tools like the cell phone to the max, that's how foundations can drive this so it becomes not a niche sort of thing, but a mainstream way in which civil society understands what's happening to the planet.
Thank you, Adrian. Again, too many questions. Some of them are actually really itching that I would like to pose forward. Like, for example, you know, how was the experience of MAP? You know,
No sé si Gabriel tenga algo que agregar ahí.
and also what are the risks also of the private information, you know. But anyway, I don't think we have the time for that. And again, I'm sorry for the questions that haven't been able to answer. I would like to ask, please, everybody to turn on their videos once again so we can have a group screenshot of every panelist and speaker, including Henrik, Manuel, John. This will be a great memory of our first English session of Amazon Tech, and we did take only a few seconds. So please turn it on now. All right. Thank you very much. Well, I would like now to pass the word back to Manuel Pulgar-Vidal, who has been diligently taking notes and hopefully will answer some of the questions of all this great information that has been shared here, and will have us to tie all this in a way that we can have takeaways for this valuable discussion. So Manuel, please turn on your video, microphone, and go for it.
Thank you, Enrique. And you can't imagine how much I have enjoyed this panel because all the panelists have brought to us strong examples on how useful it could be the technology for a fragile ecosystem as the Amazon, and with different elements. So I have taken notes, and I am not planning to repeat because that is not my role. But what I've been trying to do by listening to the panelists is to squeeze some ideas. So I hope that this not closing, but these conclusions in some way has made this possible, not to squeeze some specific ideas. And to do that, I am going back to what I propose to frame the discussion, no? What it could be understand as the most appropriate technology for the Amazon. And I mentioned the idea of to respond to a clear vision, to address the real threats of the Amazon, to fit with the needs based on a bottom-up process, and to take the opportunities. So based on what the panelists have mentioned during this panel, I have taken some of those ideas. So when I heard Dan talking about of this element, information to benefit society, I think that is an amazing phrase that could help us to define a clear vision when we think about science, technology, and governance for a sustainable Amazon. Because it must fit, and Dan mentioned that was the reason of the beginning of all this technology development by NASA. And it is true. that technology must benefit society. So it is not about the authority, this government, that are temporary figures. It is about society. And also, I would like to highlight some other idea of Dan that I like it a lot. And I would share with you why I like it a lot. Dan mentioned that this technology, all what NASA is developing, it is to address critical challenges. And he mentioned also in one of his slides, food security, water resources, weather, fire, and droughts. And look, I am currently working strongly in this concept of nature-based solutions. It is some other topic for sure. It is not for today's discussion. But it is interesting how much nature-based solutions it's getting traction when we clearly understand that the concept nature-based solutions has three main elements. And one of those elements, it is nature intervention that can address a societal challenge. That is a key one. And Dan has mentioned the same. So an accurate and an appropriate technology, it is that one that can address a critical challenge. And that moves me to some complementary ideas. When we think about critical challenges, the point it is, how can we identify well what are those critical challenges? And how much we can also track our progress with the use of technology against that societal challenge. And that brought to my mind the idea, for example, of the current NDCs, the National Determined Contribution. We are working on that. We are working in our climate plans, but it is not the only one. We have also societal challenges well reflected in food security plans, in water security plans. So the point is that if we are able to fit the use of that technology to the critical challenge, that also it could be well reflected in some kind of plan, probably we could advance more strongly in relation to that critical challenge. And also that moves me to something interesting, that because Fabiola mentioned how difficult it is the current political crisis of Peru. And it is, for sure. And Thomas Moore, that I would like to say hello to my good friend Thomas, mentioned or asked in one of the questions in the chat that the main problem is governance. And it is true, it is governance. So I was wondering, how can we overpass? How can we overcome this kind of political crisis as Peru, or this kind of governance, lack of governance situation as in the Amazon? And I am now pushing a lot the idea that it is by building our vision, our country vision that should be linked with the global vision. So for example, what we do need in Peru, it is to have a clear vision by 2050. We do need to know how are we planning to address a net zero economy by 2050. How much are we planning to raise our ambition based on the sense of urgency in our next NDC? So if we are able to build collectively the vision, we can overpass all this kind of political crisis. Let me put the example of the USA. When President Trump mentioned that they would withdraw from the Paris Agreement in the Garden Rose some years ago, immediately this initiative that it is called We Are Still In developed a strong collective demonstration of climate action by the subnational governments and the non-state actors. So what they have done, they build things based on a clear vision for the future. And look where we are now. We are close to, and I don't want to go into politics, sorry, it is not my idea, but we know who is going to be the next president. We know that we will have back the USA into the Paris Agreement. So the point is that in these 4 years in the USA, we have been able to keep the importance of the vision. And that is amazing. And that is an example on how we should overcome this political crisis. Matt refer more, and please, Enrique, if I take in too much time, tell me, okay? So Matt and Sidney refer more to the threats, deforestation, degradation, and fire. But I would like to highlight this systemic thinking that Matt and Sidney brought to us. He mentioned alerts, high resolution, reports, and action. It's fantastic. Probably, not to blaming anybody, probably Matt and Sidney, you are forgetting one thing that you are doing strongly well, that you are producing a strong, communicable, and simple information. And you know who is taking that information? The media. And the media, it is ever the most important way to communicate. So I, as a Peruvian, here when looking the newspaper, to see the information of maps, it's fantastic. It is promoting political traction and political decisions. What it must be the purpose of that technology. So to communicate well, and on the other hand, to use the media, it is also one of those elements in your systemic way of thinking. And the idea of early warning alerts, also it is key because immediately connect to needs. And 2 days ago in the Amazon Tech in Spanish, the representative of the indigenous groups mentioned that they are working, in early warning alerts. That is key for indigenous people. And also Daniel mentioned that. So it is important to develop that kind of technology. And Adrian, probably you refer in some way with really fantastic phrases to the needs. And you mentioned some principles, technology affordable, accessible, manageable, no? That can change the way that we make conservation. That is like a main objective. And what I like of what you mentioned, it is that we must put the technology in the most accurate and legitimate hands. And what are those hands? The actors in the Amazon, no? So the indigenous groups, the guards of the protected areas of the parks, no? And that kind of actors. That is key. So to identify who not only will use well this technology, but who can lever benefits and positive consequences of the use of technology, it is key when we think about technology in the Amazon and technology for conservation. And after that, Daniel from FENAMAD, I think that he has brought some good ideas about this concept of partnership. And it is not about public and private partnership. It is interesting that he referred to public and communal partnership, that it is something different. Because it is not private, that's business as usual, no peer relation. No. It is the public sector with communities, no, and that communities that are on the ground, that are related strongly to the ecosystem and to the field, and that can use this technology. So that kind of partnership, it is a key one for what he called this forest oversight system, veedurías in Spanish. And I am finishing taking some ideas of Fabiola, and it is true that without science, there is no future. So probably today we haven't discussed too much about that relation in between science and technology. In some way, yes, because again, when Dan mentioned what NASA is working on, for sure, it is strongly connected to science. So this information, this data of NASA, it is related to what IPCC also is modeling in relation to climate, no? The surface temperature of the planet, what is the current situation of weather, no? All of that it is related to science. But also that it is important, we must communicate well what science is saying to us in relation to climate and in relation to nature. Because it is not only IPCC, also it is IPBES that has identified 5 key drivers of nature loss, no? Climate, it is one of those, but plastic, extractive industries, or natural resource extraction, to be more clear, and two more, no? So the point is that we must connect that kind of information. And the interoperability, that I am not sure if it is a correct English word, but it is something that it has been raised by many people in the 3 or 4 sessions of Amazon Tech in Spanish. So I think that those are the elements that can make us able to develop a strong agenda to continue promoting technology for or towards the Amazon sustainability. Probably there are some missing pieces, yes, there are. Probably more related to the opportunities, because many opportunities are emerging, as I've already mentioned. Nation-based solutions, it is one of those. The current connection between nation and climate, it is strong. Probably the next year, it will be one of those fantastic years in which the nexus in between climate and nature, it's going to grow. So the point is that we should also look the opportunities, because it is through the opportunities that we can lever more benefits on the use of this kind of technology. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I am not sure if I should send back the floor to Enrique or John, and I hope that these conclusions are useful for the purpose of
Manuel, this is very, it's good food for thought, and I also, let me express my envy again, looking at the background that you have behind you.
Yeah, and for some people who have thought that I am in Paracas, no, I am not in Paracas, I am in Punta Hermosa, that it is 40 kilometers south of Lima, so very close to Lima.
In a sunny day. No, thank you very much.
In a sunny day.
I would like to thank all the other panelists and also end my part, and I would like to pass the microphone now to John, who is going to have closing remarks. John, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Enrique. And I just want to take 2 seconds to close. We're at the close of our event, and I want to thank everybody who participated for hanging in there with us a little longer than scheduled. I think, as Enrique and Manuel and others had said, the session is way too short to cover this, all of this information. But I do, from the bottom of our heart, we really want to thank, again, all of our expert panelists for their time and the great presentations. I just want to say to Hector Gonzalez from IDEAM, our apologies that there was some technological glitch that couldn't bring you into the discussion, but we will have you on another time. We really look forward to having your participation. And I want to thank NORAD as well for making today's panel possible. Special thanks to you, Manuel, and to you, Enrique, for making the time to help us manage this event and taking us through this huge, great discussion. So I hope this forum has helped in the conversation, and we look forward to continuing this work, and especially this exchange of ideas over the weeks and months and years to come. There's a ton of other new ideas that have come to my head, at least, on panels that we could hold to have deeper discussions on a myriad of things there. So once again, thanks to everybody for participating. Please reach out to us if you have any unanswered questions or thoughts. We'll try to get to some of those questions that were in the panel, and we'd love to hear from you and continue to engage further. And we will be sending out a recording of the event and a survey next week. Please give us all your feedback. We'd be happy to have it. And Hector, hello there. Apologies that you couldn't work into this. So thank you again to everybody. Stay safe and healthy. Historic times, and we look forward to talking to you all in the future. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Great job, Enrique.